Bible apart from Jesus, of course, I would have to say it's Abigail because her story just absolutely inspires me. So Abigail was married to this rich man, Nabal, and David first encounters her while he is actually on his way to her house to come kill her husband, to come kill him. And this is before David had become king. He and his men had spent the last 7 years running from Saul. Saul's trying to hunt them down. And just prior to this incident, they had been in the cave where they were hiding from Saul, and he had come in to use the bathroom, and David once again spares his life. And so he and Saul had this little truce, where he would pretty much tell him he's not going to come hunt him down anymore. So David and his men were out in the wilderness. They're no longer running from Saul, so they're just a little bit more chill. And they come across some shepherds that are out in these fields. And for a time, they spent some time with these guys, pretty much protecting them. The shepherds had said that they had become a wall to them. So basically, these guys were their security team for a minute because there was just a lot of chaos going on in the area. And David recognized that pretty soon was coming the time of harvest. The shepherds had told them that the shearers were coming, which meant it was time of harvest. It was a time of feasting. So they kind of hung out, took care of these guys, provided a service, hoping for some compensation. And instead of asking for money, they were basically asking for some food. So David sent 10 of his young guys over to this guy Nabal to just tell him what's been going on, that they've been protecting their guys. They greet them in peace. Peace be to you, peace to your household, peace to all that you have, and share what they've been doing, the services they've been providing, and just ask if they have any extra food on hand, if they could just please share some food. Well, Nabal, whose name actually means fool, so foolish, I wonder if he actually gave himself his own name. He turns them down and then insults David, insults him quite a bit, to where it was bad, right? So the young men go back, tell David what just happened, and it upsets David quite a bit. Really somebody at this point should have probably given him a Snickers because he was seriously angry. They've been doing this service. They've been out really running from Saul for 7 years. So who knows how long it had been since these guys had had a nice, warm, home-cooked meal. And so at the same time, one of the servants comes running to Abigail, Nabal's wife, and says, oh my gosh, your husband just did the most stupidest thing ever. He just insulted David and his men. And there was this expectation that something really bad was going to come from this. And Abigail recognized that. And so she immediately jumped into action. She starts gathering a bunch of food and starts loading up the donkeys. And it says that she had gathered about 200 loaves of bread. Who just has 200 loaves of bread extra on hand? There was 5 sheep, I believe, that were already dressed and ready to be eaten. So she gathers this food to go take out to David. What's interesting is when she gets back home from this encounter with David, her husband was having a feast. It says a king's feast. So he had so much food on hand, having this big major party, he didn't even notice all this food that was gone. Just goes to show you how much he really did have extra had on hand. He could have taken care of David and his men. So she takes this caravan of food and heads out to go meet these guys. The courage right here is so impressive. She doesn't bring any men with her to help protect her. She doesn't tell her husband. Her few servants with the donkeys and the food, and she just bolts out. She gets to this area where she is under the cover of the hill, so she can see David and his men coming first. She's more than likely just preparing her heart. I'm sure she's praying right now. And I just try to picture the scene of what this was like. To her to just be sitting there alone, and here comes 400 armed soldiers, angry, pumped up, ready to defend, their brother, their future king. And just, like I said, just the courage it took to even get to that point was super impressive. So as they approach her, she jumps off her donkey and falls to the ground and bows her head to the ground, to the dirt. And then she says what the most incredible thing she could have. She takes all the blame on herself. She says, "On me, my Lord, on me let this iniquity be." She is willing to sacrifice herself at this moment to save her people. She humbles herself. And in this humble response, this humble approach, it is this humility that actually becomes her weapon of defense for her people. You know, in our world today, when I look at our nation, you know, things we see on social media, mainstream media, wherever, everybody's just in an uproar, right? Everybody has something to say, an opinion to share. Everybody's fighting against each other. And how often in all that do you see someone respond to a threat or to an attack with humility? Here is this rich noblewoman, you know, who has the authority to make demands, to voice her opinion, and yet she approaches David in the most humble manner possible. She gets down on her knees and puts her face to the ground. And then instead of demanding anything, instead of, you know, she could have thrown her husband under the bus. She could have put all the blame on him. She could have plotted against him. You know, the scriptures say that he was a harsh man, that he was evil in his ways, that he was a drunkard, you know, so more than likely he didn't treat her very well. And there probably would have been no love lost there had she done that. But instead, she humbly approaches David and then asks for permission to speak. And in this humbleness approach, she proceeds to guide David into changing his mind and, you know, changing the direction of where he's going. She changes the focus of his anger that's against Nabal, and she refocuses his attention to the Lord. She reminds David the promises that the Lord has for his life. You know, she knows that he is the promised future king of Israel. And she reminds him and just kind of suggests that, you know, if he goes through with this is innocent blood. He wants to come kill Nabal and every single man that is under his care. And this guy is really rich, so he probably has a lot of men in his area. And so she tells him, you know, you're going to regret this for the rest of your life. And, you know, really for the first time in the last 7 years, Saul would actually have an excuse, a legitimate reason to come hunt him down as a criminal. You know, this would have stained David's record. Like, who would trust this guy? It would just have ruined so much things, you know? And I also love how she uses the stone and sling reference, you know, to help remind David that God is in charge, that the Lord will avenge him from his enemies. So in response to all of this, David recognizes what's going on. He recognizes that it's the Lord that has brought Abigail to intervene this day. He takes her advice, he thanks her for it, he blesses her, and then he accepts the gift, which means that's now payment in full. She guided David with humility. She is what you would call clothing yourself in humility. She just saved the lives of a whole bunch of people. You know, for her, these are people that she knows very well. This is someone's dad, you know, someone's son, someone's uncle, someone's brother, someone's grandpa. They were all about to just be murdered in cold blood. Gosh, how devastating that would have been to this community. When I look at our nation right now, man, I just see such a mess. You know, our culture has shifted from following God to trying to become our own gods. We're becoming so divided, and The hatred that is pouring out of people is literally killing other people. Our cities are being destroyed. It's a mess, right? And how do you fight back for something like this? How can we help to save lives while being humble? The answer is actually given in Scripture. Imagine that. And this is God talking in 2 Chronicles 7:14. God says, if my people who are called by my name, he's talking to us, he's talking to the church. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sins and I will heal their land. It's exactly what the United States needs right now, for God to heal our land, to heal our nation. If we would just get out of the way, if we would just recognize that he is God, that we are not. He's the one in control, we are not. We should really know that by now, that we are not in control. If we would just submit to him, allow him to work through our lives, humble ourselves before him, turn from this wickedness culture that we've created for ourselves, he promises that he would heal our land, that he would heal our nation. Abigail's greatest tool in stopping a massacre was humility. By simply being humble, she saved countless lives. And you know, we are quite capable of doing the exact same thing. My prayer for you this week is that you would seek an understanding of what it means to truly be humble. It's all over Scripture. There's so many different verses in here that talks about the importance of being humble. And there's a reason for it, you know, and it is all for our benefit. None of it is against us. It's not to make us weak or seem less than anything or anybody else. In fact, the Scriptures say that the Lord lifts up the humble, you know, that he will exalt the humble. We're also told in Scripture, you know, that hating our brother is the same as killing them. You know, not all murder is of the flesh. We are quite capable of killing somebody's spirit. If we were to humble ourselves, submit to the Lord, stop trying to be our own God, he promises to restore our land. This could be a message where you just roll your eyes right here, and I would just urge you to dig into the Scripture and listen to the promises that God is promising us. He says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face, he will restore and heal our land. God is not a liar. He's told us what we need to do. He's given us the tools to do it. It's on us. It's our choice to fight back. I've asked you this before, church, and I'm going to ask you again. Will you fight with me?